Hello everyone and welcome back to the Mini Hack Solved series. In the last episode, we saw how to integrate Salesforce and Slack without writing code. In this episode, we'll solve the hack by building the app using code. We'll use Bolt framework for JavaScript and build the Slack app and then integrate it with the Salesforce. If you haven't watched any of the earlier episodes, let me tell you that Mini Hacks is one of the most popular areas both at Dreamforce and Trailhead DX, where people come in, pick up a hack and solve a business problem. The hack contains the requirements which specify what to do but not how to do it. It also specifies the features needs to be used while you solve the hack. So let's go ahead and solve the hack. The hack says we should be able to view the recently accessed Salesforce records in Slack. We should also leverage the Bolt SDK and Salesforce Slack Starter Kit while we build the solution. As I said before, we'll be integrating Salesforce and Slack with code. Before we see the detailed requirements, let's check some of the Slack plus Salesforce innovations for building the solutions. We can use Slack core actions in Salesforce Flow. This is no code solution and we have covered some of the use cases like creating Slack channels, inviting users to the channels, and sending formatted messages in one of our earlier episodes. I'll share the link in the description below if you haven't watched that episode. The third option is Apex SDK for Slack, which is native Slack integration for Salesforce. We'll talk more about it later. The option we chose to use in the hack is Salesforce Slack Starter Kit. This project is available on GitHub. You can clone this project to create an opinionated minimum scaffold for building Salesforce and Slack integration. We'll check the project, but before that, let's see how this integration works. Salesforce apps can receive requests from the external systems through Salesforce APIs via connected app. It can send the requests to the external systems using HTTP callouts in Apex. Similarly, events from Slack can be sent with Events API, and we can query information and enact changes in the Slack workspace using Web API. Salesforce and Slack can be integrated by building a middleware using Bolt framework. Bolt is available for JavaScript, Java, and Python. We'll be using the Bolt framework for JavaScript. The Slack Starter Kit contains the project scaffolding to create this middleware app. It provides the necessary configurations for the integration and also uses JSForce JavaScript library to interact with Salesforce. If you want to learn more, you can also check this video by Mohit to understand how the Salesforce Slack Starter Kit was created. Okay, that's enough for us to get started with the hack. Let's click Show Requirements and start the hack. We need a Salesforce instance like Developer Edition or Trailhead Playground or a scratch-out. We'll create a scratch-out while we do the hack today. We need a Slack workspace for sure. I already have a workspace from my earlier episode and I can use it. If you want, you can also create a new Slack workspace. We need a Heroku account. I know it's not free. That's why I want to show you today how to solve this hack without Heroku by using local development. The next one is Salesforce Slack Starter Kit. I'll share this repository link in the description below. We'll start by cloning this repository. Let's click this link. This repository has detailed documentation. I encourage you to go through it. I have already read it multiple times, so let's touch some of the important points in this README file. You can create a project structure that uses the Bolt SDK and JSForce to integrate Slack and Salesforce. This is the application architecture which we already covered in the earlier slides. Here you can also see the scenarios of authorization between Heroku and Salesforce. You need not really worry about it because it's all taken care of in the Slack Starter Kit. Here you can see certain prerequisites like Git, Node, and CLI. Make sure that you have all of these in your system. And here are the setup steps that we are going to follow. First, we'll configure Slack app at api.slack.com. You can go through these instructions. I have already read these instructions, so let's click this link. We can create an app from scratch or an app manifest. Let's select App Manifest. Let's select the workspace. We have a manifest sample in the repository that you can see in a YAML file format. Let's copy it. Click Next. Click YAML and paste it here. Click Next and click Create. Next, we can install it to the workspace. Let's click Allow. Let's go and check in the Slack. We have successfully created this Slack app and installed it. You can see that it has processed YAML file and created a Slack app named Salesforce Slack App. We have actually defined this name in the YAML file. Let's go back to the instructions in GitHub. We can deploy it using non-Scratch org like developer edition, or we can use Scratch org. Today we'll use Scratch org. So let's check those instructions. You can clone the repository in your favorite location. I'll clone it to the desktop and open the project directory in VS Code. Next, you can authorize the DevHub by copy pasting the command, or you can set an existing DevHub. I already have an existing DevHub, so I'm going to use that. The next step is to log into Heroku. We'll not be using Heroku, hence we'll skip this step. The next step is to run the deployment scripts. We have deployment scripts in the project that automatically creates connected app, Heroku app, and other basic configurations that are required for this integration. We can run the script, but wait. We want to use local development instead of Heroku, so what we'll do is we'll comment out Heroku deployment related part of the script. Let's go ahead and do it. This file also has Salesforce authentication logic, so let's be careful and we'll keep that part and comment the Heroku related part. We'll comment this, 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 and rest of the code. We'll also comment this header as we are not using it. You need not worry about what to comment and what not to, because I'm going to share this file with these changes. I'll share the gist link in the description below. Okay, what to do next? Switch to the scripts directory, npm install, run the deploy script, and follow the instructions. Let's do that. Switch to the scripts directory, npm install, run the deploy script, and follow the instructions. Let's do that. Let's select Scratch org. We'll have to enter the Slack bot token, and we can find it in our Slack app information. So let's go to api.slack.com, and within our Slack app information, go to OAuth and permissions. Copy the bot user OAuth token from here and paste it here. Similarly, copy and paste the Slack signing secret. You can find it in the basic information. Fill in the dev hub name and alias for the scratch org. Okay, what did this deploy script do? It created a scratch org, deployed the code, and assigned a permission set. It has set up the JWT bearer flow authentication, and it created and deployed a connected app. We have avoided the Heroku app creation step intentionally, and today we are going to use the local development. So let's go down to the local development setup instructions at the bottom. We'll be using ngrok, which is a node module with which you can host your local host service on the internet. You can also sign up for a free ngrok account from where you can get the information like authorization token, etc. I already signed up and have an ngrok account. If you haven't, you can go ahead and sign up. Okay, let's follow these steps and see how we can set up a local environment. Let's install ngrok globally by running this command in the terminal. Copy and paste this command and replace my auth token from your ngrok account and run it. That's it. We can run the ngrok command now with 3000 or any other available port. We are now left with one final configuration before we test the Salesforce and Slack connection. We need to update the URLs with ngrok URL wherever applicable. First, we need to change the request URLs in the Slack app manifest file. Click App Manifest in the left side bar and update the request URL. We'll be using the ngrok URL instead of the Heroku URL. You can copy the ngrok URL from the terminal. And make the changes here. Note, keep the /slack/events as it is. And save the changes. Next, update the Heroku URL in the env file generated by the Slack Starter Kit. Let's also update the callback URL in the connected app. Click Save and continue. Now, let's run the app locally. While ngrok is running, let's open a new terminal and navigate to the app/Salesforce Slack App directory. Run npm install and run the app using node app.js. You can now see that Bolt app is running. Let's go and verify. Let's go to App Manifest and verify. Let's also test the connection from Slack. Let's click Authorize with Salesforce button. If it shows a warning that you are being redirected to ngrok, accept it and go. This is one-time warning. Salesforce and Slack are now connected through the middleware app. It looks like an exhaustive setup, right? You need not worry about it, as I'm going to talk about an easy way of creating the integration where we need not create the middleware app. As Salesforce and Slack are now connected, let's test one of the global shortcuts installed by default with the Salesforce Slack app. We can invoke the shortcuts by clicking this plus icon and typing the shortcut name. You can see that this shortcut is with the Salesforce Slack app. Let's click that. You can also launch this global shortcut by typing /, picking the app and selecting the shortcut. You can see the successfully connected to the Salesforce instance and the authenticated user message. Let's close it and see how it is implemented. We define the shortcuts in the manifest file. You can see that we defined whoami as a global shortcut with a callback ID, who_am_I. Now let's see how it is implemented in the middleware app. The Salesforce Slack app resides within the apps directory. The listener folder contains actions, events, and shortcuts. Let's open the index.js file in the shortcuts directory. Here you can see that it registers a shortcut with callback ID who_am_I. And you can see that the callback is implemented in whoami.js. Here in the if condition, you can see that we are checking the context has been authorized and then getting the Salesforce connection from the context using JSForce, and then getting the current user from the connection. Now we want to show the instance URL and username in the Slack. We can do that by creating a view and sending it to Slack using Web API. We can use one of the built-in web clients. Here you can see we are using client.views.open method, which takes the trigger ID and a view as arguments. Let's see how this whoami response view is created. It is implemented in the user interface /models folder and imported. Let's check that folder. We are exporting the whoami response through index.js. And whoami response.js defines a model view using Slack Block Builder, which I would say programmatic equivalent of Block Kit Builder. So you can use either of those. We'll talk about it shortly while we implement the hack use case. Here you can see we are defining a model with a title and a close button. The model can have multiple blocks and each of these blocks can have sections. Here in this section, you can see that we are showing the instance URL and username. We are converting it to JSON and then returning it. With all of this understanding, the hack is going to be really easy. Take my word. Let's go back to the hack and see what we need to implement. We need to create a new global shortcut with the name recents. There is also a hint to use Block Builder to create the user interface. Let's click that link. You can see that it is a node library and you can install it using npm. It also has exhaustive documentation on how to build the user interfaces using blocks. I'll share the link in the description below. Okay, let's start by creating this welcome text. Let's start with the manifest file. Let's copy paste this whoami shortcut and make the changes. Let's rename it to recents and give a callback ID and description. Let's save the changes and see if shortcut is now available in Slack. You can see recents is now available, but nothing happens when we click it. This is because we have not implemented the logic in the middleware. Let's go back to hack and see what we need to implement. we need to implement a model that looks like this image. We need to implement a welcome text to show the number of records accessed. Okay, let's implement that logic. Here I am in VS Code. Let's copy paste the whoami.js file and rename it as recents.js and make the necessary changes. We'll make the changes in this if condition. Once we have the connection, we can run a SOQL query to get the recently viewed records. Let's see an example in Salesforce documentation. Let's see a query example. We can copy paste this SOQL query example and make the changes. We can get ID, name from the recently viewed object. We want to display the size in the welcome message, so let's capture size in a variable. We can send this size to the view where we can build a message. We can call the view as say recent response and implement. Let's make the necessary changes in the import and export as well. Let's now include this recent callback in index.js. Now let's implement the model for the recent response. Let's copy paste whoami response.js in user interface /models folder and rename it to recent response.js and make the necessary changes. Let's change the title to recent records. Let's also rename the constant to recent response and change the input parameter to size. Let's change the text in the section. Notice that I'm using :wave : for emoji and dynamic syntax for the property in the dynamic expression. Let's now include this recent response in index.js of models. That's it. Let's restart the app and test it once. There you can see a model with the welcome message. Let's now go back to Hack and see further requirements. We'll have to show the list of recently accessed records showing name, object type, and a button linking to the Salesforce record. Okay, let's go and change the code to fulfill this requirement. We'll have to show the object type too. So let's add type to the SOQL query. We'll have to show the list of records So let's store the records in a variable and send it to the view. Now let's make changes to the view. Let's add records to the input parameters. Let's add a divider so that it looks clean. Let's process the records and create a section for each record. I can use map to achieve this. Let's save it, restart the app, and let's test it. You might sometimes see an error like expired trigger ID, in which case you can reinstall the Slack app and that should be fixed. Let's access more records in our Salesforce org and see the output. We can see it now shows the other recently accessed records as well. Let's go back to the hack. The last requirement is to show a button linking to the Salesforce record. We need to add button to each section. Let's see how we can add button to a section from the blocks reference documentation. Here I'm in block documentation and let's see the section block. Section block can contain type, text, etc. It has a field called accessory which can hold element objects. Let's see the element objects. We can use button, checkboxes, etc. Let's see button. It has type, text, URL, etc. The text object defines the button text. A URL can be loaded in the browser when the button is clicked. This is exactly what we want. So let's use this order to add the button to the section. Let's add dot to the section to access the accessory field. Accessory can contain elements dot button that can be instantiated with fields, text, URL, etc. Let's add text. Let's test it. It works. Let's now add URL to the button and add a record view URL. Let's replace these hard-coded object type and recorded values with the properties. Let's save it. Run the app and test it. There you can see the record details when we click the button. So what did we do? We integrated the Salesforce and Slack by implementing middleware. I know it's not that easy. The good news is we need not create middleware with Apex SDK. Apex SDK for Slack is a native Slack integration for Salesforce. It is in pilot now, but stay tuned for beta. With that, we have completed solving the hack. There can be more than one solution for a problem. If you have a better solution, please let us know in the comment section below. Also, let us know your thoughts on this content, and if you want any new content, please let us know in the comment section so that we can deliver that content. If you like this video, please click the like button and the subscribe button to get notifications whenever a new video is published in Salesforce Developers YouTube channel. Thank you for watching this video.